The opinions expressed on this program represent the viewpoints of individual authors or contributors and do not necessarily reflect those of Troy University. This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're fortunate tonight to have for the fourth edition the legendary Bill Baxley, in the fourth edition of our series on one of Alabama's most legendary political figures, two-term Attorney General of Alabama from 1970 to 78, and Lieutenant Governor of Alabama from 82 to 86, but one of the best lawyers in the state, too. Bill is talked about last week, the 16th Street Baptist Church, which is the most prominent political prosecution in state history. He was led and was involved with, was responsible for. We're going to finish up the fourth series today, talking about other corruption things. Bill had a lot of high-level corruption things he prosecuted when he was Attorney General of Alabama in the 1970s as a progressive Attorney General. Bill, let's talk about some of those cases. It's a broad category, but zero in on some of the most high-profile ones, if you will, about some of the political cases. You prosecuted a lot of sheriffs in the state, which was unheard of at that time. They were corrupt. But I also want you to talk about that Fruithurst thing up there in Cleveland County. That was really popular. What you did. Start with that one, if you will, and then go on some others if you got time.
All right. We did try a lot of corruption cases. Now, I was a very poor office administrator. I didn't like that, so I did.
You were prosecutor.
I did the trial work, and I think I was the first Attorney General that did most of the actual trials. But I'd much rather be doing the courtroom work than I had in the office there. So I tried a lot of the big cases we made, and we didn't back off any of them. We convicted some sheriffs. We convicted the President of the Public Service Commission. We convicted some state senators. We convicted, I remember one of the judges in Madison County, one of the county judges, district judges. We did a lot of corruption cases.
6 sheriffs, wasn't it?
Yes, they didn't go to trial. I think it was 6 of them total. The one that went to trial was Luke Brewer, Talladega, and he got convicted. And then I don't think we had to try any of the others. They resigned at some point. But you mentioned that you want me to do that Fruithurst thing first.
Cleveland County, wasn't it?
Cleveland County. Fruithurst is a little old bitty community in Cleveland County.
Right on the line of Georgia line.
Yeah, and it's on the road, the main road between Birmingham and Atlanta, which is probably two of the most populous places in the southeast, and that was the main road artery between the two, and Fruithurst just happens to be right on that road. So Fruithurst, I mean, they must have had 200 and something people, and they ended up having about 10 or 12 policemen, about 200 people, but they stopped people on that highway and was running a speed trap. It was the biggest, worst speed trap in the world.
Been going on for years, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't that long.
Oh, it wasn't long.
I think there was one over there in Georgia that kept popping back up on Highway 1, I think, in Ludowici, Georgia. And I think some of the Fruithurst people got the idea from that one. That's my guess. I don't know that. But they started making a huge speed trap out of Fruithurst, Alabama. And so I started getting letters from all over the country as Attorney General about being stopped in Fruithurst, Alabama. I thought I knew every little old hamlet in Alabama, but I'd never heard of Fruithurst. And so I started checking into it. And lo and behold, I found out if per capita writing tickets if the city of Birmingham wrote as many tickets as the town of Fruithurst did, that every year every man, woman, and child in the United States would have a ticket in Birmingham to come to court. And they were just using it, and also they had some dishonest people in the department that
I can
were
imagine
stealing things out of cars, and so I got so many notes and letters, and a few calls would come in the office. I said, with this kind of smoke, there's got to be some fire. So we started looking into it and realized what it was. And so I thought that if I told the people to stop it, being honorable people, they'd stop it. So I got the mayor and the city council to come down to Montgomery, and I told them, look, you just can't be doing this. This is a major artery between two major cities in the South, and so they said, yes, sir, yes, sir. Well, okay, we're glad to know that we're a new town, and I said, you can't be doing that. And so he said, we know, we'll do so and so. I thought they'd do something about it, and nothing happened. They went back, and so I brought them back down, I think, a second time. I said, look, I got more to do than fool with this stuff. We got major cases we handle, and I said, I'm giving y'all the chance to let's stop it before we have to do something. So, yes, sir, yes, sir. And so I thought for sure they would. I talked pretty tough to them that time. First time I was very nice, and they were, I thought, decent people, but it didn't slow, not only didn't stop, didn't slow down.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this nutty idea, and I said, well, and I remember telling the Birmingham News this. I said, I don't reckon that I did very well teaching them a class in constitutional law, and they didn't learn the law class I was teaching, so I'm gonna have to start teaching them one in economics. And I said, that's what I'm gonna move to. We're gonna teach them one in economics. So I went over and asked if I could get the cooperation of the state troopers, and they said, oh yeah, we're embarrassed by what they're doing.
Everybody knew about it.
Yeah, and so we moved a trailer up there, a big, nice trailer, right beside the road, and when moved troopers, they assigned, the governor cooperated totally, the colonel, and we got troopers assigned, and I got people in the office volunteering and to go, and so we staffed it 24 hours a day, and out there and we had a trailer for them to be in, and had trooper protection so they wouldn't do it, and I had a lawyer on duty 24 hours a day, and every time they would stop somebody, every time, as soon as they finished with them, the troopers would turn on their light and take my assistant up there, and they'd go up, the trooper beside the lawyer, where they weren't going, you know, that little old town's policemen weren't going to mess with the troopers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the trooper would go, my assistant would go with the trooper and would hand them a card, say an assistant attorney general, and say, we're assistant attorney generals from Alabama, we're out of Montgomery. We want to tell you you've been the victim of a speed trap, and we would like to offer you, and they'd give them that card, we'd like to ask you not to pay this, not to send it in, allow us to go to court and defend you, and we will defend you all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court if you'll just not pay this ticket. And so 99% of them didn't do it. So then I told, after we did that for several days, I told the lawyer for the city, I said, well, I told them, and put in the Birmingham News, they're going to teach them a class in economics. Now, what we going to do, they hadn't called any of them for trial. I said, when they show up for trial, none of them's going to pay their ticket. We're going to argue it in city court, town court, and we'll lose there. And we're going to appeal after we lose to the circuit court or the county court, whichever one we have to appeal to in Cleveland County. And then if we lose as a judge trial, we lose, we're going to ask for a jury trial in Cleveland County. If we lose there, we go into the Court of Criminal Appeals. If we lose there, we go into the Supreme Court of Alabama. If we lose there, we're going to try to get the Supreme Court of the United States to cert it. And y'all going to have to pay lawyers to defend every one of those. And said, the way I got it figured, to collect a $70 traffic ticket, you're going to have to spend probably about $5,000 for each case, because we're going to be here from now on doing it.
What'd they say?
Huh?
What happened?
Well,
then?
it ended in about another week.
They just to pull it out of there then.
Yeah, I had also filed a federal suit in federal court in Birmingham to try to stop it that way, but we didn't need that way. We taught them the lesson in economics when they realized, and they disbanded their police department. And but that was of all the things I did, that was the most popular thing that I ever did. I got more good letters from Alabama and everywhere else about that than any other major thing. That was, I mean, relatively speaking, compared to the really important things we did, that was nothing. But I got more good publicity and good letters from that than any other thing I ever did.
Bill, let's go back and finish up, if you will. Let's go back to politics a little bit. You know, there couldn't have been two more people that built their career on being reactionary and racist and everything as George Wallace, and being so progressive on the race issue as you were in 1970. But it was ironic that George Wallace really, really likes you, and you had a good personal relationship with George Wallace. And you've told me in the past that you believe he was really doing that for political reasons. So go in a little bit with y'all. It was such an interesting thing because you were a young progressive, out front, liberal on the race issue, progressive on the race issue. Wallace was riding it like a rented mule to the election and everything. He used it so bad, but y'all liked each other. Go back to how that relationship started. And he was openly for you in the '86 governor's race.
Yes.
Was he openly for you in '78?
No, '78 was when he was.
Oh, he was openly for you in
Yeah.
'78. So you'd been Attorney General for 8 years, from '70 to '78.
Yeah.
Now he'd fallen out with Beasley. Beasley was thought to be your opponent in
Yeah.
'78, and they thought, because y'all both been running for governor for 8 years, you as Attorney General, him as Lieutenant Governor. But Wallace had fallen out with him when he tried to usurp the power when Wallace got shot up there in Maryland, so he didn't like Beasley anymore. So it wasn't going to be for him. But that '78 race, it looked like it was 3 Bs, Bill Baxley, Albert Brewer, and Jerry Beasley. But then 2 other people got in there, State Senator Sid McDonald and the newcomer around the block, Bob James, who ultimately won that race. We may get in that race a little bit if we got time, but Wallace liked you and you liked him personally, but you believe he really was just, he wasn't deep down a hardcore racist like Bull Connor and some of those other guys were. Connor and them really were racist. They were hardcore, you know. But Wallace, do you think Wallace really wasn't? Talk about Wallace and your relationship a little bit.
Well, you couldn't help but like George Wallace if you knew him as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I disagreed with what he had been doing, but as a person, he was as likable a person as you could ever meet. And I do not believe he ever believed that stuff that he did. In fact, I think if anybody is a student of it, he got beat in the runoff for governor in 1958 by John Patterson.
Right.
And I think it was the only miscalculation in Alabama politics Wallace ever made. But as far as a person, I did like him, and I think he liked me, and we'll get into that in a minute. But in '58, John Patterson beat him in the runoff. And Patterson was he was Attorney General at the time. And he was the segregationist, and Wallace was the moderate candidate.
Right.
And so Patterson beat Wallace in a runoff. And Wallace thought that he got beat because he wasn't as strong for segregation as Patterson was, which he wasn't.
Mm-mm.
Wallace was the moderate. And Wallace, they say, I don't know this, they say he vowed he never would let that happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And so Wallace became a very strong segregationist.
He knew the race issue was the key. He knew the race issue was the key in '62.
He stood in the, he did his schoolhouse door stand over 4 years after he got beat by Patterson. But I think he miscalculated, because I think that the people of Alabama, if it had been reversed and Wallace had been the hardcore segregationist and Patterson had been the moderate, I think John Patterson would have won, because John Patterson, 4 years before, John Patterson's daddy had won the primary to be Attorney General on cleaning up Phoenix City, and he got killed. And I think the majority of the people in Alabama felt like they owed John Patterson a vote for governor because his daddy had gotten killed. I think he would have beat Wallace if the roles on segregation had been reversed. And I think it's the only miscalculation Wallace ever made is the reason that Patterson beat him. I think Patterson would have beat him no matter what, because his daddy had gotten killed.
Bill, you hit the nail right on the head. Wallace told me that. One day I was talking politics with him. He says, I got out there in '58, and he says, that movie, The Phoenix City Story, had just come out, and it made everybody in the country had watched it. He said, I got out there and I was running against a martyr and a lesser.
That's exactly, he's right. He never told me that.
He didn't realize
He
it.
never would admit that to me.
He realized that. He realized that when I got out there,
You're the only person I ever heard of who admitted that.
He told me, he said, I got out there and I said, good Lord, I'm running against a martyr and a movie star.
Yeah, he couldn't have beat Patterson. I liked Patterson too. He was a good person.
I like Patterson.
Yeah, they were both good people, in my opinion. And
Patterson, he'll be almost 100 years old. Go back to about y'all, but did he know your daddy? Or
they were judges in adjoining circuits.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
My daddy never would take part in politics hardly, but he introduced George Wallace in '78 at his rally in Dothan, because he was close to him.
But if Wallace endorsed you, he was for you.
Huh?
Well, Wallace likes you from the
get-go.
No,
I said, well, my daddy introduced Wallace when he was running for governor in '58 against Patterson.
Not 70, 58.
58, okay. I mean, 58.
So he got involved in the '58 governor's race because he liked him in the circuit.
The only one he ever did, but he did endorse. He introduced Wallace at his speech, and I remember Minnie Pearl was traveling with Wallace, and she kissed my daddy on top of his bald head after he finished his introduction.
McDowell Lee told me a story about how he had to pay Minnie Pearl to come down and campaign at one time, because Wallace didn't care about money. He didn't have the money. But go back to y'all's.
I tell you what Wallace did when I ran in '78. He got George Wallace Jr., who's a good guy.
Yeah, he really
to go around and travel with me and my band and introduce me for all my speeches.
Wallace got that
in '78. Yeah.
George Jr. went with you in '78.
George Jr. introduced me, and George Jr. is a good person.
But you'd gotten along real well with Wallace while you were Attorney General.
Well, when I took office, now this is a story that very few people know, very few. But when I took office, the state had all kind of suits pending for segregation and against the federal government. And Gallion had done a bunch of them. And so I've, like I say, got elected in May, and I had until January. So I got up a list of all those crazy cases Alabama was in. Mississippi's in some of them. Louisiana, I think, was in a couple of them. And Alabama, I don't think Georgia or South Carolina ever got in them. But anyway, I made a list of all of them. And right after I got in office, I had a suit that I brought to, we filed it within a week that I was in office, to say, and I didn't want this to happen down the line when I was getting ready to do what I was going to do on civil rights and segregation cases. So they had a case, I found the Milk Board. They had a suit against, Dale Champs had a suit against the Milk Board of Alabama to say it was unconstitutional to say what prices grocery stores had to charge for milk. And so the state was defending, upholding the law, and they had a bunch of other people, all the dairies and the people that wanted to keep it. But so I came in office and I filed a declaratory judgment in federal court and got a 3-judge panel. And I wanted to set a precedent that said that the Attorney General did not have to represent the state if he thought the state was wrong, or he did not have to represent to uphold every law of the state, because the Attorney General swears to uphold the laws of the state. But he did not have to represent the state if he felt like it was against the federal Constitution. But I wanted that said by a court. So I filed one on that milk board issue, because I didn't want to say that for the first time in a segregation suit. And so we had a 3-judge federal panel with Judge Johnson, Judge Reeves, and Judge Pittman. And that's a pretty good judge panel there. And so they ruled that the Attorney General, and it was a very short opinion, said the Attorney General takes an oath to uphold the law. He also takes an oath to support the federal Constitution. The federal Constitution supersedes the Alabama Constitution. And so he's under no obligation to defend the state if he thinks the state, if he bona fide thinks the state is wrong. So that's what I wanted. And I had it in a case about milk prices. So I got a list of all those cases, segregation cases, when I came in. Wait till I got that ruling, which was very quick. It gave me the power to do it. So then I had the Judge Johnson to set all the cases that were pending. I asked him to set all those cases for a status conference, which is crazy to ask for that, because you don't want to set a bunch of different cases for a status conference. So Judge Johnson set them, and he thought that he told me later he felt like what I was going to do. he wondered why I was setting it, and he figured out that maybe that's what I was going to do. Yeah, and so I sent the head of our civil division, an older man, my daddy's age, named Gordon Madison, great lawyer down there, to dismiss all those cases. And that was right at the first of me and Wallace taking office. It was, in
71.
And so I thought, now Wallace had run this racist campaign against Brewer, and so I thought, Wallace is going to do me like he did Richmond Flowers, but that's the way it's going to have to be, because I ain't going to do that. And so we set for that thing for a status conference, and then the afternoon before, I got thinking, I said, I like Governor Wallace. He's the governor and I'm the Attorney General. I feel like as Attorney General and Governor, even if I didn't like him, but I do like him, I'm going to go give him some advance notice of what I'm going to do tomorrow. So I got an appointment to go over there. And so I went over there and I had a memo made up showing the Attorney General's in charge of litigation, not the governor, and got some cases and made him a little folder. So I went over there, and this was before he was shot, so he came running out there in the waiting room, said, "Come on in, Bill, come on in," put his arm around, "What can I do for you?" Let's sit down. So we shot the bull a little while, and he said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "Well, Governor, I've got a memo here that shows you the Attorney General is pretty, the law is clear, that Attorney General's in control of litigation, and he makes the decisions for Alabama in court. I'll give you the, I don't need to see that if you tell me, I know that pretty much the law." And I said, "Well, tomorrow we're going to go down and dismiss all these cases Galleon's got, and we're going to dismiss them. I think they're nearly all in Montgomery. We're going to dismiss them wherever they are, and we're not going to file any more of them. And we're not giving up a thing, because we ain't going to win any of them. It's just wasting taxpayer money, wasting people's efforts on doing work for nothing. And we're not going to be fighting, trying to say that a state court can overrule the U.S. Supreme Court. And so we're dismissing them tomorrow, and they're not going to be any more filed for 4 years." And so I sat back and I thought, here it comes. This is the end of my career. Wallace is going to blast me, and he's going to go to press. He looked at me and said, "Bill, I'm not going to tell you how to run your office, and I don't expect you to tell me how to run mine. Now let's just talk about something else." And he never said a word in public about me doing it. We did it the next day. Never said one word. Never said anything bad about me doing that. And we dismissed him. We never filed anymore. And he never said. Now he ran all over the country running for president still, a couple of more times on states' rights, but he never said one bad thing about me. And there's a P.S. to that that's worth telling. I sent Gordon Madison over there, and Gordon Madison was the best lawyer we had. And the next morning, after I did the thing with Wallace, Madison dismissed it. I didn't go. I didn't want to bring the publicity. You know, it was unpopular. I didn't. And so I sent Madison to do it, and he was the one to do it because he was head of the civil division. And so that afternoon, they came up there and said, Mr. Madison wanted to see me. And I said, oh my gosh. And I said, I know what he wants. He's gonna quit. He's so mad at me for making him dismiss those cases. He's gonna either retire or quit. And everybody gonna say I come in and run off the very best lawyer we got, this young kid, Attorney General. And I said, find out what he wants. So they went out there and said he had to tell you. He can't tell anybody but you. I thought, I know that's it. He's gonna quit or retire. And I said, well, tell him I'm busy. So I made him wait out there for a long time. Finally, I saw I was gonna have to see him. I said, tell him come on in. And I thought, man, I dodged a bullet with Wallace yesterday, but I ain't gonna dodge this one. It's gonna be bad publicity. But so he got in. I said, well, Mr. Madison, what can I do for you? And he said, well, General. I said, don't call me General, call me Bill. And he said, no, I'm gonna call you General because I got respect for the office. And I thought, this is proof. He got respect for the office, but he don't have any for me, but he's getting ready to quit. He said, I said, what do you want? And he reached over and grabbed my hand and said, General, I want to look you in the eye and hold your hand and shake your hand and thank you for the privilege you let me have doing what I did this morning in court. This is the first time in a long time that I've been able to walk out of a federal courthouse and hold my head high, and I want to thank you for it.
Told you a lot about him, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
But Bill, it also tells you what you've told me over the years, that Wallace's heart was not as cold as Bull Connor's.
Oh,
he was doing it for politics.
Wallace did not believe that stuff.
And you were close to Wallace because you served closely with him those 8 years. He was governor the entire time.
I served all the way, 8 years under Wallace and 4 years as lieutenant governor under Wallace. Yeah. The only thing Wallace ever asked me after I hired Judge Thompson and hired the first black who worked for the state, he'd say, and he said that when I dismissed those cases, he'd said, Bill, did you get any bad letters about hiring that young black lawyer? And he'd say, when I dismissed those cases, he said, did you get any bad letters? I didn't get any. I said, no, sir, I didn't on that. And when I hired Judge Thompson, he said, did you get any bad letters? And I said, yeah, I got 3. He said, is that all you got? Is that all you got? I said, yeah, and I got, I think, 36 or 38 good ones saying he should have been done a long time ago. He said, is that right? And I'd see him weeks later, and he said, did you ever get any more bad letters about that? That's the only thing he ever.
That's just like Wallace. It resonated with him. I mean, letters potted. He was a political animal.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
But he never said one bad word. Now, 4 years before, he in Richmond Flowers got as crossways as possible to get over that same issue.
Yeah. Well, Bill, we tell you what, we really appreciate you doing this with us. Folks, I guess for the last 4 weeks has been former Attorney General and former Lieutenant Governor Bill Baxley, one of the most legendary figures in Alabama political history. He's told some inside stories on all the famous cases he prosecuted his 8 years as Attorney General, but he's one of the most prominent figures in Alabama political history. We thank General Baxley and Lieutenant Governor Baxley, and prominent lawyer Bill Baxley has been our guest, and we thank him for being with us, and we thank you viewers for watching. Hope you tune again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate it, everybody.
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers. a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.